So, so it's a really good thing that the world ended when we left the Paris Accord, because otherwise it would have ended after that Helsinki press conference. But luckily, even if it hadn't ended when we left the Paris Accord, it would have ended when we left the Iran deal. And then, if it hadn't done that, it would have ended when we left net neutrality. Whatever Trump does, every summer, I feel like I make this speech. Every summer I've done this show, I have to come on and remind people that summer is the perfect time for the left to go insane, because there's not as much news. This has been a big news summer because of the Kavanaugh appointment, and because of for the Supreme Court, and because of the Helsinki, the Europe trip and all this stuff. But they just get hysterical. And Obama promised Putin, we played this yesterday, he would pull our missile defenses. He did pull our missile defenses. I remember walking to PJTV and there were people on the ceiling saying, this is treason, this is treason. Then Obama went around our Congress and made this deal with Iran. He's shipping them money, he's sending them that was treason, that was treason. So now Trump makes a miscalculation in a press conference, and now we're all going to die, and he did make a miscalculation. What this reminds me of? It reminds me of like when a Christian movie comes out and it's anti-abortion. And so all the press is all left-wing. So they're like, this is the worst movie. It's ugly. It's filthy. It stinks. It sucks. It's going to destroy our nation. So you go to the movie to support it because it's a good Christian movie, opposing abortion. And you watch it and think, yeah, it's really not that good. It's like, it's not that good. So you find yourself saying it's not that good while everybody else is just screaming and screaming. So let's take a look at what they're screaming. This is treason and it's the end. Oh, it's the end of everything. But it is a mistake. And I'm going to talk about why I think Trump did it. And I'm going to talk about why, aside from his own ego, which is always involved in these things, but also why he's wrong and why some of what he said was right. So he's at the press conference, talked to Putin. And we're all hysterical about Putin because the press has been ginning this story up forever. And a reporter asks him, did the intelligence agency, our intelligence agencies, American intelligence agencies, say the Russians tried to meddle with the election? Putin says they didn't. Who do you believe? Here's Trump's response.
You have groups that are wondering why the FBI never took the server. Haven't they taken the server? Why was the FBI told to leave the office of the Democratic National Committee? I've been wondering that. I've been asking that for months and months, and I've been tweeting it out and calling it out on social media. Where is the server? I want to know, where is the server, and what is the server saying? With that being said, all I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to see the server. But I have confidence in both parties. I really believe that this will probably go on for a while, but I don't think it can go on without finding out what happened to the server.
Okay, so he says he basically has faith in both sides, Putin and our intelligence agencies. And here's the left's response.
I'm having hysterics. I'm hysterical. I can't stop when I get like this. I can't stop. I'm hysterical.
You think I'm joking, but here is an actual cable montage from our friends at Newsbusters, Cut 3.
First of all, I just have to say I'm sick to my stomach. I'm really feeling nauseous.
Stunned, gobsmacked.
We're hearing words like, I feel sick, this is frightening, calling it an abomination.
Shocking.
Stunning. Genuinely stunning.
What is going on? Unbelievable.
Astonishing. Just astonishing.
It is astonishing, it's heartbreaking, and it represents, I think, a pivotal turn in our nation's history.
It's time for Americans to be out on the streets.
There are people protesting in the streets every day in the 70s. Why is that not happening now?
When do we see almost a shadow government come out and say, we cannot side with the government?
As an American citizen, I just personally think today is just an incredibly depressing moment in our time, in our history as an American. Was this a new low? Jim Sciutto, Josh Campbell, I appreciate you both being with us on what has been really a difficult day for this country and frankly for much of the free world. Ahead,
He didn't even meet his own low bar for not screwing this up.
I mean, it is an absolute disgrace. It's a parody of a disgrace.
This entire week of President Trump abroad has made Hillary Clinton seem all the more prescient.
All he had to do was not, put on jammies and crawl under the covers with Vladimir Putin, and he couldn't do that.
I'm hysterical. I'm hysterical. I love Anderson Cooper. He's so upset. He's always so upset. How it's been a very difficult day. It's been such a difficult. And my favorite part of this is this whole thing. And I was even getting these from conservatives because conservatives were piling on Trump as well. But Chuck Schumer, let's let Chuck Schumer say it. This is why they think he was being nice to Putin.
What could possibly cause President Trump to put the interests of Russia over those of the United States? Millions of Americans will continue to wonder if the only possible explanation for this dangerous behavior is the possibility that President Putin holds damaging information over President Trump.
You're a mean, mad white man.
Yes, a mean man. That's the only possible explanation, is that Trump is being blackmailed by Putin. If Trump, I was getting this even from right-wingers yesterday. If Trump is being blackmailed by Putin, how come he armed the Ukrainian rebels? How come he shut down 2 of their consulates, threw out 60 diplomats? He sanctioned the oligarchs, who are all Putin's really got is oil and oligarchs supporting him. He expanded the Magnitsky sanctions. He tripled our defense in Europe. It's utterly absurd. I mean, it is utterly absurd. The New York Times, a former newspaper, has their lead editorial, "Why won't Donald Trump speak for America?" And the minute I saw this, I thought, Trump, why won't you speak for America? You guys stand for socialism. You write articles about how great sex was for women during the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, it was great sex for them until they dragged their husbands off and shot them. That's like, wow, what great sex. You guys at the New York Times, you backed the man who said he wanted to fundamentally transform America. Why didn't you speak up for America then? You opposed justices who uphold the Constitution. This is what's so absurd about this, is even though I thought Trump should not have said it, and I'll tell you why in a minute, even though I think Trump should not have equated anything in America with anything in Russia and really shouldn't have these ideas about Russia that he has, like, he at least is viscerally pro-American. He loves this country. He wants to do things good for this country. He wants to fix things for this country. He wants the country to love him. The New York Times can't say that about itself. The New York Times hates this country, hates what it stands for, hates the freedoms of the kind of people who voted for Donald Trump. So why don't they speak for America? Walter Russell Mead, who is, I think, the new Charles Krauthammer, because he is doing the way Krauthammer defined the Reagan doctrine when nobody, including maybe Ronald Reagan, thought he had a doctrine overseas. Walter Russell Mead is working very hard to define the Trump doctrine without romanticizing Trump, without being an ever-Trumper and saying everything Trump does is right or that Trump can be trusted or whatever. He just tries to define what he's saying. And he says, first of all, he makes the point in today's Wall Street Journal. He says that Obama's policy, Trump's policy in Russia bears a lot of resemblance to Obama's policy. Both men held foreign policy establishment in contempt. Both came to the job with the belief that their unique life stories and personal qualities would enable them to transform global politics in a historic way. Both were willing to accept a Russian presence in Syria and to overlook Russian complicity in Assad's atrocities. Long after the 2009 reset failed, Mr. Obama was willing to flout domestic public opinion to make concessions to Russia. We remember him whispering to Medvedev that he would take the missiles out. And the thing about Obama is the establishment is complaining that they gave Trump all the information he needed to stand up to Putin, and he didn't do it. But like Trump with that, Obama ignored everybody with the Iran deal. So what is it that makes Trump different, aside from the fact that Trump actually likes America and Obama hated America? This is the thing. Trump is apologizing overseas for agencies that he feels have been corrupted, like the Justice Department. Obama was apologizing for Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. He was apologizing for America itself. He thought America itself was essentially fundamentally flawed, and that is not what Trump is doing. So it's nowhere near the same thing. But the difference, and this is what Mead points out, is Mr. Obama saw Europe. Everything is about Europe right now. If you think Europe is great, then you are a left-winger. That you think is, that's all we need is socialism. Yeah, you don't have a job. Yeah, your life has no meaning. No, you have no purpose. Yeah, you don't really produce anything, but you have free medical care. If you think of that, and all those Muslims, they don't mind. They don't matter. All those Muslims moving in, your neighbor just set you on fire. Doesn't matter. That's just if you think Europe is doing great, you're on the left side. So that was Obama. Obama saw Europe as a rich and generally well-intentioned part of the world that punches well below its weight in world affairs. Trump's view, he sees in the EU a mix of fecklessness in defending Western values and ruthlessness in promoting its own bureaucratic power. Mr. Trump and the Brexiteers see the EU as a screen for German domination of the continent, and Mr. Trump's concern that excessive levels of migrants from Islamic countries threaten the social cohesion of Western societies. So in other words, he is in line with politicians in countries across Europe who resent German power and fear the imposition of post-Christian, post-nationalist values through the EU. Here's what Mead says about this. From this perspective, Mr. Putin looks less like a malign force bent on dismantling the Cathedral of Liberty and more like an unsavory but potentially useful partner. And that is what Trump sees. Trump sees Europe going down the drain. I believe he's right about this. He sees Europe abandoning Western values, abandoning nationalism, abandoning the Christian values that underlie our freedom. And he thinks, well, Putin's not a good guy, but I can use him. Here's the problem with that, okay? Trump probably knows that Putin is a gangster, but he's dealt with gangsters. He was a New York real estate developer, so he's dealt with gangsters. And he thinks, oh, well, I can deal with gangsters. But he's wrong, because gangsters don't want to kill you. They want to rip you off. They want to take money from you. And then everybody gets what they want. You want to keep your restaurant? Yeah, you pay us for protection. You can keep your restaurant, but you can still have your restaurant. Putin is not that guy. He wants his enemies dead, and we are one of his enemies. Chris Wallace did this amazing interview with him yesterday, and he just said to him right out, he talked to him like the mobster he is. It's a really interesting exchange. He said, well, listen to this question. This is cut number 1.
Why is it that so many of the people that oppose Vladimir Putin end up dead or close to it? Former Russian spy and double agent Sergei Skripal, the victim of a nerve agent attack in England. Boris Nemtsov, a political opponent, gunned down near the Kremlin. Investigative reporter Anna Politkovskaya, murdered in an apartment building. Why is it that so many people who were political enemies of Vladimir Putin are attacked?
Well, first of all of us have plenty of political rivals. I'm pretty sure President Trump has plenty of political rivals.
But they don't end up dead.
Not always. Well, haven't presidents been killed in the United States? Have you forgotten about it? Well, has Kennedy been killed in Russia or in the United States? Or Mr. King? What happens at the clashes between police and civil society and several ethnic groups? Well, that's something that happens on the U.S. soil.
Classic Soviet gangsterism. First of all, John F. Kennedy was killed by one of their guys, a guy, Lee Harvey Oswald, who wanted to defect to Russia and basically killed Kennedy because he was afraid he was being too hard on Cuba. That's the first thing. And secondly, it has nothing to do with the fact that this guy murders his enemies. He murders his enemies. That Donald Trump is not doing that. Barack Obama is not doing that. Clinton, maybe, but I don't think so. I don't think Clinton was doing it. So it's classic Soviet gangsterism. But then Wallace asks him about the hacking, and this is a hilarious cut. Do we have this cut?
Well, let me start answering your question with something a little bit different. Let's have a look at it this way. People are talking about the purported interference of Russia with the election process in the United States. I've mentioned this in 2016, and I want to say it now again. And I really wish for your American listeners to listen to what I say. First of all, Russia, as a state, has never interfered with the internal affairs of the United States, let alone its election.
Putin says, absolutely not. We did not hack, and everything we hacked was true. So the stuff we sent out, the emails were really emails. Everything we got was absolutely right, but we didn't do it. So it's a completely nonsensical answer. And the thing is, Putin has to understand, Trump has to understand that this guy is not, there's nothing for him to give us anything. There's no reason for him to give us anything unless it is exactly in keeping with what he wants. And what he wants is us gone. He wants us reduced to nothing. He's not like a gangster. He's like a gangster dealing with rival gangsters. And when Trump stands up there with him and makes a comparison with us to him, he's basically saying, that's right, we're all rival gangsters here. And that is simply not true. We are not a gangster state like Putin's Russia. Here's what he's right about. Here's what Trump is right about. When Trump says, where is the server? When Trump says that the investigation into Russian hacking and collusion have become politicized as attacks on him, he's right. There is no indication that Mueller or anybody else in the Justice Department has ever seen the servers that they are saying are hacked. They were looked at by a Democrat firm, basically, that was built there to protect Hillary Clinton. And as far as we know, the Justice Department, the FBI, has never gotten their hands on those servers, so they do not know for sure that it was what they're saying. But let's say it was true. Then the question becomes, and I said this yesterday, but it remains true, why did this indictment that Mueller turned out, why did it come out exactly when it did? Why did it come out just after Strzok humiliated the FBI? And why did it come out just before Trump went over to have this summit in Helsinki? Michael Mulcahy, who was Attorney General under Bush, he writes a piece in the Journal today saying, look, this is something that prosecutors are not supposed to do, that prosecutors are not supposed to do stuff that damages the political sphere. Now, usually they talk about this in terms of elections. Prosecutors are not supposed to do investigations that might affect the outcome of an election unless it's desperate, unless we find out that, Trump is actually holding up liquor stores and he has to be stopped. But if it's not like that, the prosecutors are supposed to hold back. So in a case where we're going off to do this summit, it's the same kind of thing. It's this, we do not want the prosecutors releasing these indictments when Trump is going off to do a summit. Why did they do it? Why did they do it if it's not political? I think they did it. Here's the thing. What was Putin thinking when his guys went into these computers? He was obviously not thinking Trump is going to be president. The guy is not a seer. He's a gangster, right? He didn't know that Trump was going to be president. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. And so what he was thinking was, Hillary's going to be president, and so I'm going to have this and I'm going to humiliate her and I'm going to be able to hold this over her, and hold this over her when she's president. So Trump is wrong in putting us on a par with the Russians. That is just wrong. He's wrong in thinking, I think he's wrong in thinking that he's going to get anything of value out of Putin. This is the same mistake Obama made early on with the reset button and all that stuff. Same mistake W. Bush made when he said, I see into Putin's heart. First of all, if he saw into Putin's heart, he must have been looking in the freezer because it ain't the guy's chest. And, this is the same mistake. And they all kind of came around and realized, no, I'm dealing with a gangster who wants nothing. I'm dealing with the scorpion. The scorpion's going to sting me no matter what because that's his nature. So he's wrong about that. He is right that this collusion thing has become a politicized investigation. He is right. Also, when he's talking, he's conflating, you'll notice, the look at Russian hacking with the Russian collusion story. But the press has been doing that to him since he took office. So I can't blame him for doing that. But he is right about that. And he is right to attack an organization, the Justice Department, that was corrupted by Barack Obama, just as the State Department was corrupted by Barack Obama and the IRS. All right. But don't panic. It will all pass over. There'll be more news tomorrow and it'll all, we'll be going on to something else. So far, listen, the other thing is Trump is doing a great job as president. So that's the other thing.